Welcome to Crosstalk. Tonight we have a special edition. Special because first, it's raining. But ideally, of course, looking at the way things are moving fast in our political scene, it tells you how much politics is transactional. And joining me in studio tonight is none other than Mark Bichachi. In fact, I have two Marks. Mark Bichachi is a political analyst. I also have Reverend Mark Echakara, who is a transformational leadership and governance expert. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Begin with you, Mark. What do you make of the political atmosphere of our nation today?
I thought the rain you were talking about was the rain that has poured down on one Rigathi Gachagua.
Yes.
Well, there are two main things that have happened. One, we have seen that our politicians, when they want to get something done that is beneficial to them, they can do it in record time, right? So we've proven that, one, they are not lazy, and we've proven, two, that they have capacity to actually make decisions. But beyond that, they have shown that there is a marked difference between the regime of Uhuru Kenyatta and the regime of one Dr. William Samoei Arap Ruto. In that, whereas Uhuru would have been patient and accommodated a lot more of Rigathi, if Rigathi was his deputy, President Ruto is different. That he will not stand for a deputy he feels is insubordinating him. We have had very many leaders who were subpar in behavior, did not hold the dignity of the office, treated the office as a matter of commonality. This gift that they have given to themselves should be extended to every leader going forward. That if someone makes the mistakes that Rigathi Gachagua has made, whether an MP, an MCA, a senator, a women rep, a governor, we should equally remove them from office as quickly and as easily as Rigathi Gachagua has been removed. This is the cry of every Kenyan, that the standard they've applied to Rigathi, may it apply to everyone else as soon as possible, because that is when we'll start building a better and more responsible leadership in this country.
Okay. Rev, how do we then move forward with a country that some feel our person has been targeted and been removed from the office, while others are rejoicing, as we have seen?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It is true what Mark has said, and what you're also saying is true. However, as a nation, this is something that we have desperately, over the years, wanted to get rid of. The politics of our person. And it is something that has persisted on. It's actually a cancer that has been eating the very fabric of our society, in that whenever leaders misbehave or do things that are not right or infringe upon the constitution of our land, they quickly retreat and hide behind their community and acquire from their community to be chanting from every corner before every media camera of how that their community is being targeted. That has been how our politicians have been conducting themselves for so many years. And yet our constitution, the 2010 constitution, probably touted one of the most progressive constitutions globally, sought to really get rid of this and create a balance so that whoever takes office or whoever holds public office is required to uphold the highest level of integrity and to be cognizant of the ethnic diversity that is Kenya, and to make sure that everything is put in place to guarantee the unity and the cohesion of the nation. So what happens most of the time in our political space is that whenever leaders are caught up in the kind of situation that our immediate former Deputy President found himself in, they use resources to put loud mouthpieces at every corner of the nation or strategic places to create the impression that the entire community is not happy with how they are being treated. That is something that is the public knows. It's actually a huge test, a bigger test for the people of Mount Kenya West to prove that indeed even Mount Kenya East is part of the mountain. And as long as this thing has come back to Mount Kenya, Murima iko sawa.
And Mark, it seems like we've touched the Murima, and this is something that the former DP was fond of saying. Mm-hmm. But do you look at his removal from office as a calculated political design, or this is just a manipulation of power?
Definitely it is a manipulation of power, because the process of impeachment requires 2/3 of parliament to remove someone. That shows, one, how much power is held by the person who impeached Rigathi Gachagua. And number two, it shows that there was a mountain discussion. Now, what do I mean by a mountain discussion? There has been a shift in the mountain in terms of, one, the absolute support of UDA previously and an apparent wavering of that support from UDA. Now, in choosing Kithure Kindiki, the president is answering that tribal question. He's answering the question of, does the mountain still recognize, and can they see that he recognizes that the mountain has a role to play in his presidency, and therefore has made Kithure Kindiki, who was Mudavadi's junior in cabinet, to be Mudavadi's boss. So when you look at that, yes, it is a political move. Yes, it is a move that shows and entrenches the power of the president, and he's also giving a very clear sign. He's telling Kithure Kindiki, as you get into this office, please don't try the games your predecessor tried, because I have the wherewithal to actually get you out of office, which is something that creates order in terms of how the president would like to get things done. But there's another conversation. There's a conversation that the Gen Z riots started, and that conversation is about governance, responsibility, accountability, and things like that, which have become critical issues. They become so critical, and you can see it in the conversations when people are talking about the university funding model, the social health care, and all of those things. So the question that this impeachment brings to the fore is, which of these narratives will actually carry the day? Okay. Will we as Kenyans go back to our tribal cocoons, or will the hope and desires of the Gen Z and others who wanted those changes be captured by politicians again, then they fizzle out, or will they hold together and create a political platform?
If Gen Z movement has morphed into this, then does it mean that it has also set a stage for 2027 campaigns?
This will automatically trigger a conversation that will move on to shape the politics of 2027 elections. So in a way it's going to, especially when it comes to the issues of communities and regional political interests, it does. But at the same time, every leader out there is now conscious. At the back of their mind, they know that the threshold for accountability has been set so high that nobody should imagine that they cannot be touched. So those who are in power, or those who aspire in 2027, must be conscious of that and to see how well they manage not only those, but answer the questions that were raised, so that they do not rise again coming to 2027.
Yeah. Mark, would we say the Constitution has won?
The desire for change and for leaders who are accountable to the people is growing. And as it grows, you will see a sure change. Whether at the ballot or people beginning to recall people, it is going to happen.
But we forget quite quickly, just before we take a break, it seems like the electorate forgets very quickly.
If you have been an observer of Kenyan politics over the past few years, over the past round of elections, you can clearly see a growing consciousness among the electorate as far as their right is concerned. And that is good for democracy, so that then those who are elected into office also become aware that these people are not as ignorant and naive as they used to be 20 or so years ago. These people are now more informed, our democracy is more vibrant, and the consequences of taking these people for granted can be very fatal. And that is the place where we are as a nation.
All right.
Yeah.
We want to take a short break. When we come back, Mark, what then should inform the president's agenda moving forward? And of course, Rigiji has gone to court. Will that stop this process or not? We take a short break. We'll be right back.
We are living in a lost and broken world, constantly bombarded by messages of hate and atrocities. But with God, we can overcome. Find hope and restoration on the go through life-changing shows on the Family Media app.
And then you will lose yourself and gain the world. And Jesus said, what good is it?
Get to stream Family TV and Family Radio 316 straight from your phone. Catch up on a show you missed or create video streaming playlists by saving and watching videos from our huge variety of shows at your own convenience. Download the Family Media app, available for all Android and iOS users on the Google Play Store and Apple Store, respectively. Family Media, keeping Jesus on the airwaves.
Welcome back to Crosstalk. You can share your views and feedback based on what we are discussing tonight on 20316, our SMS line. WhatsApp line is 0786 316 316, and we'll be in a position to sample some of your comments as we continue with this discussion. Mark, of course, we ended at a point of, now that we've seen the transition that has happened in our political space, how then should the president move forward?
I think it is quite critical to put President William Ruto in perspective, because I don't think a lot of people see who he is. One, this is someone who's never lost a personal electoral contest. He's never. Two, this is a president that in 2 years has changed and overhauled healthcare, changed and overhauled education, changed and overhauled agricultural subsidy, changed and overhauled our tax regime, changed and overhauled our debt both locally and internationally, changed and overhauled our relationship with the United States, and the list goes on and on. Ruto, as a president, is the kind of person who, when he has an idea, he will execute.
Will that then not give him the power of a dictator, kind of?
You see, it is a good thing for a leader to be able to deliver on what he says. What Kenyans need to ask themselves is, does your president love you and care for you or not? Because if he loves you and cares for you, you are about to have the best time of your life, because you'll have a president who is not fettered by parliament and who has the force of will to deliver on what he has promised. If he does not like you, you are in trouble.
Who then oversights the executive?
It doesn't necessarily mean that when Parliament supports a president's proposition, such as the impeachment of the Deputy President, that now Parliament is in the pocket of the executive. Now the executive cannot be oversighted. Remember, the public are also watching. If Parliament become a bunch of yes men and women, the citizens are watching. 2027, the hour of reckoning will come, and the citizens will say, "Nyinyi mlienda mkatuuza." You know, so Parliament is also aware of that. Like Brother Mark has said, the president has worked well to consolidate and the support of Parliament to ensure that whatever agenda he brings to the floor of the House, Parliament will go through it and Parliament will make sure that it goes seamlessly so that the government goes to work.
Mark, DP has gone to court. How is that process going to look like?
Let me just piggyback on what Reva said. The kind of oversight that the Constitution imagined was not oversight of acrimony. It was oversight of ideas, right?
Yeah.
So I'll give you a classic example. Today, this country is talking about Adani, right?
Yes.
Now, some people say Adani, no. Raila and others say Adani, yes. No problem. The guys who say Adani, yes, you've got your Adani plan. But the guys who say Adani, no, what is the other plan? That is oversight. I wish one day we live in a country where we are able to move from idea to idea and compete on ideas and be opposed to ideas and propose ideas so that we can move forward, right? This thing of you don't like Ruto, so everything he does is wrong, or you like Ruto, so everything he does is right.
But that has been the culture of our politics for the longest time.
That is what needs to change. That is what needs to change post haste. Now I've forgotten your question. I got too passionate.
Now that there's a judicial process.
Oh yeah, the judicial process, yes.
Ongoing.
Now,
how does that now affect this well-structured process?
The reason why he wanted an extension and the reason why his lawyers walked out when the trial continued was because the deputy president was playing legal chess. This is what I mean. If Senate had extended too long, the constitutional deadline of 10 days would have lapsed, creating a constitutional ground for which he would have gone to court to complain about. If the Senate, as it did, does not give Rigathi Gachagua the opportunity to defend himself, then also at the same time, he has grounds to go to court and say, hey, I didn't get a chance to speak, I was denied. The moment the Speaker of the Senate said Rigathi Gachagua ceased to hold office, and then there was a Gazette notice
that came in the middle of the
yes,
night.
that issue was done.
Yes.
And then the President swiftly nominated, and Parliament, as we speak, has made Kithure Kindiki the Deputy President. Therefore, what Rigathi Gachagua will go to court to do, initially, if he had time, he would have gotten impeached and then went to court and stopped the president from nominating. Cannot happen, already happened. So he will go to court, and the court cannot remove Kithure Kindiki because he is legally appointed. They might go to court and challenge and say there was no public participation, blah, 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 but he'll be in office. It will be very difficult to remove him. And by the time you're done with court, High Court, Court of Appeal, Supreme Court, 2027 is done. So it's done.
If he would have resigned, he would have still remained politically relevant. If he would have resigned before the impeachment process. He knew if he loses, that is the end of him. For 10 years, he's not going to be involved in Kenyan politics. So that makes him irrelevant. Irrelevant to the point that very soon, those who are chanting, those who are dressing the praise and talking about the injustice and all that, soon they will all begin to smell the coffee and begin to vanish, and everybody minding their business. So for me, that's where I see things heading to.
Mark, as we come towards a close, these people, like Rigathi said during his presser in Coast, that they were the darling of the Kenyan people. These people have came out very strongly supported and backed by the church. Why was reconciliation between them difficult?
You know, it is very, very important for the church to stop putting God's decisions into a democracy. So let's move beyond this thing of trying to
But that's
democratic.
what they used the church for, to get into power.
Yeah, but
at some point we thought they were birthed into leadership through prayer and through church.
But that's the point. You need to separate a democratic process from our religious sensibilities. Because when you mix the two, you understand that of necessity, the nature of democracy forces politicians to do what politicians do across the world. But what is most critical is this. 2/3 of National Assembly passed a bill. 2/3 of Senate passed a bill. That means there is enough votes in Parliament to change certain articles of our Constitution. Kenyans need to open their eyes and see that this circumstance we've opened up creates great opportunity for politicians to make very big changes in this country, and you better pray that those changes are good.
Your closing remarks, Rev.
As things stand, it looks as it were like the church is being indicted for their role in the election or in ascension into office of President William Ruto and his deputy president. The truth of the matter is, if you go to scripture, the church or the leaders, the prophets, were the heart of determining the leaderships of nations. They never voted. They would spell, they say, the will of God. Remember, there was a story of a contention, which looked like now an election, a story between Adonijah, David's son, and Solomon. And then it happens that Adonijah had a set of preachers, priests who were on his side, and other leaders. And they went out because David was frail. David didn't know. Behind the back of the king, because he was old and he was kind of indisposed, and they went and they declared Adonijah king and they blew the trumpet. Then the prophet Nathan comes to Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon, and says, the Lord, the king promised that Solomon will sit. How come then that Adonijah does reign? And the prophet gives her the strategy. He says, go to David and tell him, Lord, my Lord, didn't you give your word that Solomon will sit in your place? And while she's there, the prophet Nathan comes in to confirm that indeed the king made that promise. And so everything played out like that, and eventually David says, what? Are you saying Adonijah is the one who's reigning now? No, that cannot happen. He calls the prophets and all the people who are relevant, says, please go to the temple, pour oil on him and blow the trumpet and declare that Solomon, the king David, has made Solomon king to reign in his place. So the prophets have always played an important role in shaping leadership of nations. And like for Saul, for example, the people began to agitate, saying, we want a king. But then the rest, of course, is biblical. That the Lord said to Samuel, the people want a king. So he told him, Saul. And then after that, David comes in. So you can see at every point, leaders, religious leaders were involved in shaping leadership of the nation. And be that as it may, when leaders come into office, you will see even Saul comes in and he makes his mistakes. David also comes in and makes his mistakes. You don't now turn and say, Samuel, who anointed this man, made a mistake. This was not God's will, you know. Now, the leaders go there now, they exercise their own will now and how they discharge their mandate. If they do things that are ungodly, we don't turn to blame the prophet who anointed them into office.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Mark, of course, on a light note, you had mentioned in terms of Mudavadi being the number 3 in the hierarchy when we had Gachagua in office. Ideally, in situations such as that, you would presume that the number 3 will take the office. Has Mulembe Nation been shortchanged in this?
You know, that's actually a critical question. One of my thoughts was that Mudavadi probably would have been elevated simply because it's very clear that the president is trying to woo Nyanza and Western. But there's something very critical that happened, that the mountain began to agitate. So this is a strategic move, not to undermine the Mulembe nation, but to maintain as much of the mountain as he can. The Mulembe nation, however, remember, is a strange one. The Mulembe nation is not the kind of bride which you will woo and be convinced she will come with all her belongings. Some belongings will always be somewhere else.
That's a good place, Mark, to end this Crosstalk special tonight. There's something that Mark said that is very critical, that as citizens, as an individual, you need to ask yourself, does your president cares for you? Until next time, have a good night.